Shalom friends, Aaron here. I wanted to share a little story with you. I'm working late, and so I figured I'd share something with you. We took another step forward toward our goal of moving out of the suburbs. Maybe kind of a small one, but we needed to clear out some space in the house, and we realized not something we're going to be able to do all at once. It's just, we don't save everything. We are not, either of us, thankfully, we're in agreement on this sort of thing. We're not very sentimental about stuff. Teresa and I try to keep things as streamlined as possible when it comes to what we keep and what we don't. We've always been like that together. Anyway, we had a garage sale, more than anything just to get rid of things. And we sold things crazy cheap. Like $5 for the love seat. Gave some stuff away. We did good for a garage sale. And got rid of most of everything, which was nice. And that'll make some space for us to, honestly, kind of go through some more things. We have been sort of... we keep the house clean, but, the moving the furniture and finding out what's underneath it and behind it, doing all that kind of cleaning and dusting, that stuff, is not something we've been doing for some time now, knowing that we were heading toward this summer where Teresa was going to head out with most of the kids, and myself and the oldest boys are going to stay home and tear everything up. So... done the maintenance too around the house that I absolutely had to do, but some of it I haven't bothered with. If you own a home, you know that there's always something to be working on. And I haven't worked on anything that I know I'm going to tear out. Just sort of patching things up and keeping them going until then. So we have more to go through, but as big as the house is, having room to go through everything without giant piles of messes everywhere. And it's not just thinking about moving, it's really thinking hard about what we need and what we don't, because we really don't know what our immediate future is going to look like, how long it'll take us to get a home built, where exactly we'll live while that's taking place, and we can't have a lot of stuff to truck around, so we really want to keep that to a minimum. So there's a lot to consider as we go through our stuff, and I think mentally and emotionally it's sort of part of the process as well. Anyhow, I'm going to share a video about something in the near future about what I think is one of the big things affecting people's health these days. There's a lot, but let's share maybe in particular about one thing, maybe touch on some other subjects. But interestingly enough, although we were all feeling pretty well, and generally we're very healthy, we do eat very well, we don't take into our bodies a lot of the things that are truly poisons for us, and we eat a lot of the healing foods that God has designed for us, and we try to eat as clean a food and drink as clean a water as we can. And we find that, I think I would say that God honors those efforts. I think He multiplies our efforts as well. But there is fruit just for the efforts as well. So, we don't get the flu, and we rarely have colds. And when we do feel like we're getting sick, Teresa is very good at researching, and I help with that, but she's the big catalyst for it, researching and finding out what we need to do to holistically, with the food we eat, treat whatever ailments we have. And, if somebody's coming down with a cold or something, and we have a healing tea that Teresa makes that is incredible what it does for us in a day or two. But after being outside around a bunch of other people for much of the day, Teresa and I and the 4 oldest children were out, 3 oldest children, and then even the younger children were exposed to some other people a bit, more so than normal for them, a whole bunch of different people. And we've got some allergies, I suppose. Again, I think there's more to it than that, but in a nutshell, I was really suffering with respiratory issues yesterday quite a bit. And it would be easy to blame it on what I've always thought it was. I think it's just sort of like the straw that breaks the camel's back for me. Dust allergies. When we were taking the furniture out that we were selling, I was fine. And when we got all done with our garage sale and it cleaned up outside, I cleaned up the rooms where the furniture had been. But I have a really good mask that I wear. It's actually a really great fabric mask for particulates. It works great for dust. I bought it on Amazon for $15. I use it for woodworking, and I really like it. It's better than the paper masks. And this helps me quite a bit. And I was wearing that the entire time, but I was still really messed up, congested, feeling almost asthmatic. And I'm not, like I have fluid in my lungs, but I didn't. And our 3rd son, Andrew, who's 7 now, has always, since he was little, suffered with asthma-like symptoms whenever he had some sort of a cold or something. I'm just looking at the time here. And we used to get him an inhaler, an oral steroid. But this is all chemicals. That's all it is. It's not healing. Does it give him some relief, open up his airways? I think it does. But I also think that it's one of those things where it causes problems, and it doesn't necessarily make things better in the long run. He's gotten a lot better, and we've been told that those sort of problems where kids have asthma-like symptoms, they can kind of grow out of it as they get older. And it seemed that that's the case for him. Although lately, maybe the last couple times, everybody was a little sniffly. Again, we kind of knocked that out, but he had a day or so where he kind of struggled a bit like he did in the past. And yesterday he was having a really hard time. And I have to say that he sounds like he has pneumonia when he gets like that. His breathing sounds so much like he's got fluid in his lungs. And now he's been to the doctor years ago, a couple times when this first started with him. I had taken him to the ER, and they did a whole workup on him, and at no point did he ever have any fluid in his lungs, and not even like a restriction in his airways to be, really concerned about, but enough to make him feel bad and then get nervous and sound bad and feel like he's having a hard time breathing. His oxygen sat levels are always good and that sort of thing. But anyhow, he was really like that yesterday. And as a father, as parents, Teresa would, I think, say that she felt the same way I did. It's a helpless feeling and can be frustrating and even a little scary. And we prayed for him and prayed before we went to bed that everybody would feel better, because a lot of people weren't feeling their best. That's pretty interesting. But as I was praying for Andrew, I just asked God to help me to know what to do for him. Because I wasn't going to run him to the ER. You know, they want to do chest x-rays, and getting a bunch of x-rays is not good for you. And they want to give him an antibiotic, even though there's no evidence that he's dealing with any kind of a bacterial infection. And they don't believe that's what it is. They still want to give him an antibiotic. They want to give him lots and lots of an oral steroid treatment, which is maybe the only thing I would do. But they kind of pressure you to do all those other things. So I don't want to take them unless I feel like I have to. And having taken them, I think, 3 times in the past and knowing what the result of that is and having them at the doctor and finding out what they have to say about it, it's also unnecessary. I've learned that. But still, as a parent, when you feel kind of afraid about what's going on, it's easy to want to do that. And so I was trying to figure out what exactly I should do for him. And we have a water filtration system. It's just a countertop water filtration system by a company called Berkey. And I've tested the water. They claim it takes out something like 99% of the pharmaceuticals in the water. That's important for us down at the end of the Mississippi River. And bacteria, virus, metals, chlorine, all that stuff. And it's pretty amazing. It purifies the water to the point where you could take ditch water with mosquito larvae in it and dump it in there, and you get out crystal clear water you can drink. Put red food coloring in there and it filters it all out. It's pretty incredible. We also have a Berkey filter for our shower so that we're not in the chlorinated water. Sometimes our water around here, no matter what they say about the chlorine levels, you feel like you're in a hotel hot tub where they've got way too much chlorine to be even close to healthy, and the heat of that all coming up at you, it's sickening. And we don't get that. We don't smell that at all in our shower. Anyway, as I was praying for Andrew, I really felt like God was just telling me that we should clean off in the shower. And so I got in there with him and cleaned him up, just rinsed him off. And then the other thing that I felt God was telling me was, now this might sound funny to some people, but to go and spend some time around the trees. And I felt like I knew what God meant telling me that, because when we'd finished our garage sale, I had to go get the signs down. And one of the signs, I had to cross sort of a busy road that's divided by a grassy area around a canal. And I said, I'm going to go get the signs. And my oldest daughter, Isabel, said, can I go with you? Kind of right away. So I told her, okay. Some other kids wanted to go with me, but I said, no, just her right now. So we walked to get the sign. And there's a cluster of cypress trees, bald cypress trees. They're really beautiful. They're in the sunlight, the green leaves, needles, the leaves on them they're like iridescent. They're so beautiful. And I've just always really loved cypress trees. The smell of them, they're beautiful trees. I love cypress wood. What I know about cypress at that point, I appreciate about it. It's one of the strongest trees, not as dense and hard as an oak or anything like that, but it's one of the trees most resistant to insects, wood-boring insects, especially the invasive species of subterranean termites that we have from down here in the deep south up till Tennessee, Formosan termites. And these nasty little buggers, they have colonies in the hundreds of thousands, and they eat the hearts out of live trees, which termites that are native to this continent didn't do. So these are evil little creatures. But cypress resists them. They don't like to eat cypress. So they got a real strength about them. But as Isabel and I were walking, we were just sort of noticing the cypress trees. And if I had gone by myself to get the signs, I would have looked at them. I always look at them, always notice them and pay attention to them. But we sort of stopped and admired them together, talked about it, even sat down by them and kind of thought about how nice it would be to just relax over there. And we were feeling tired after a long day, and both thinking that if we had a blanket, we could lay down and take a nap. But now this is literally, it's a busy road, and there's cars really speeding by on either side of this. It's a kind of a wide area including the canal, but not a place anybody would think about hanging out. And when I felt like God was telling me that I should go hang out in the trees with Andrew, that's what I did. I went out and hung with him by the trees, and it was these cypress trees. It was late at night, and any park or anything around here is closed, and I don't need a sheriff's officer coming and asking me what I'm doing, sneaking into a park after dark. And we've got a big tree in the backyard, but I just felt like that what was being said to me was something different. So because I'd just taken this walk with my daughter and admired these trees, that's the first thing that came to my mind. And as weird as it seemed, probably to lots of other people who were driving by, we have a little turnaround to go over the canal on either side, and the little cluster of trees that we sat by is right where people coming off of our street would, to get on the other side of the canal, would be right looking right at us as they came around, and people were looking at us funny. But we hung out under there and we prayed and we talked, and we really started to feel better. And I'll post some links to these. I looked up some one thing really in particular that I found amazing. It was finding out some things about cypress. Number one, it's not an edible tree in any way. Like a hemlock, for example, you can actually do something with the bark, the inner bark, and eat it. And the cypress are not toxic, but they're not edible in that they don't have any nutritional value. But if you find out about cypress essential oils, 3 things in particular, there's like 8. There's a website I'll post a link to, and they give you 8 benefits of cypress essential oil. And this is something I didn't know. We didn't know it, but I found it really interesting that when Andrew was really suffering, he was nervous, having a super hard time breathing. And just to tell you a little bit about it, I really do feel like a big part of that is because of the toxic environment that we live in. A lot of people don't realize it's the truth, but it really is. Our bodies, our minds and our spirit as well. And we're bombarded every day, constantly, with our toxic environment. And I really feel like Andrew was suffering with issues with the toxins in his body. And obviously that was manifesting in a respiratory issue. And he was also dealing with quite a bit of anxiety over it. Well, 3 of these 8 benefits to cypress essential oil are relief from anxiety and elimination of respiratory issues, congestion, and even asthma-like symptoms. And then cypress essential oil helps your body to eliminate toxins. And so we just kind of hung out under the tree with a blanket on him and him sitting with me and talked. And I think I didn't bring a book to read to him at that point. Well, we just talked. We got some of the cypress boughs down and we were just holding on to them. And it reminds me of a story that I'd like to tell you that I think is really, really important. And this sounds to some people kind of like new age weird stuff, but I got to tell you, when you consider the things that have life, and I think maybe everything has life, where did the life come from? You know, God spoke this world into being, and everything that has any sort of life in it, and you can even say a tree has breath, because it's taking in carbon dioxide and exhaling in a way different than we do, oxygen. And trees have life, and trees can be stressed out by storms. The trees down here, the oaks, for example, as well, are trees that are sort of naturally resistant to insects. And even with as bad as the Formosan termites are down here, the oaks really were not so much affected unless they were already sick. And having all that dirty water that these poor trees sat in after Katrina, and just the stress of that situation on the trees weakened them. And since that time, the damage done by the Formosan termites to these majestic old oak trees has been like nothing that the city of New Orleans has seen in its history. And I mean, it's understood by a lot of people that plants respond to different stimuli. There's been people who've done studies that show that plants actually may feel sort of, I don't know how else you'd put it, well, say like people, but even sort of pain and stress. So where do they get that life from? Well, it's life from God. And we talk about how everything has energy, and some things have good energy and some things have bad energy. Some people have good energy and some people have bad energy. And I've talked with the kids about how, when we eat an apple, it gives us life. It's got life-sustaining energy in it. When that apple is connected to the tree, it's alive. But when we pluck an apple, it isn't dead yet. Just because we pulled it from the tree, it's still alive. And if an apple just falls from the tree naturally, well, what happens? It slowly deteriorates. It slowly rots. And as it does so, it turns into nutrients for the seed. And then the seed uses those nutrients, and then eventually it germinates and a little apple tree grows. And so it's the life from that apple that goes into the ground around that seed and then becomes the life for the little seed to sprout into a tree. And when we eat an apple, we're actually taking in that energy, that life energy from the apple. And if we eat a rotten apple, it's bitter and it's nasty and it's not good for us. It'll make us sick because it's death, it's dying, but there's life in an apple that hasn't rotted yet. And those cypress leaves, they have good energy, they have life in them, and when they fall to the ground, all those needles, eventually they dry out and they nourish the soil around the tree. And it's this cycle where all of those nutrients go back down into the soil and then are absorbed by the roots in the water, and then the tree uses that energy to make new leaves that capture the sunlight with their chlorophyll, making glucose for the tree to grow and live. And it reminds me of one of the first times I talked to a holistic chiropractor that I was seeing down here for many years about being sick. And she was strength testing me. It was something that I'd never experienced before. And she had me hold a supplement in my hand after she did these things, basically touching me somewhere on my forehead to clear me, essentially kind of clearing your mind of whatever it's thinking about. And then you have bacterial points and viral points. Bacterial point, viral point down on your belly somewhere. And was checking to see if I had a bacterial or viral infection in my body, and that's why I was feeling bad, trying to figure out what supplement to give me. Now, I think she sells good supplements, and I think that there's something to that. But if we can get any of our nourishment, anything that we get in a supplement, if we can get it in food, it's going to be a lot better for us. I just want to say that. So, but anyway, before she has me hold the supplements, she's checking me for bacteria or virus. Checks me for bacteria, tells me to hold up my right arm, and clears me, checks me, trying to push my arm down. It doesn't feel like she's really getting anywhere pushing my arm down. Clears me again, touches me on my bacterial point, when she said basically it makes your body think about bacteria when you get touched in that place, because maybe that's where you would have more of a higher concentration of the bacteria. I'm not sure. But a little weaker maybe, but not bad. Just can't really move my arm too much. And then she clears me again and checks my viral point, and then goes to push my arm down and just throws it right down. Now she's, for a woman, a pretty strong woman. But I also know that my wife is a very strong woman as well, even though she's not very big. She's very strong. And I'm thinking, can she really just throw my arm down like that? Was she faking before when she couldn't push my arm down and then just throws it down? And I just got my look on. I've never experienced anything like that at that point. And I've got this look on my face like, what is this weird, what is this, like New Age Scientology or something? What the heck is going on? And she said, I can see by the look on your face that you're skeptical. Don't worry, it's not some crazy New Age stuff. But she said, I want you to understand that everything has energy. And she said, let me show you. And so she gives me a supplement that's got stuff in it that's meant to help your body be stronger in the ways it needs to be to fight a viral infection. And she said, here, hold this in your hand. Tests me again. And with the one supplement, I was a little stronger, but she still pushed my arm down. And she tries me with another supplement, does it again, and I'm stronger. And she's pushing my arm, and it's slowly going down, but she's having a real hard time with it. Or so it seems. And so I'm wondering if she's faking it. That's when she says, look, she said, if I give you a fresh cut of broccoli, a nice broccoli floret, and you hold that in your hand, she said, that broccoli has good energy. And as weird as this sounds to you right now, you need to understand that just holding that broccoli even in your hand, you'll be a little bit stronger because of the good energy that broccoli's giving you. And when you eat it, it does even more for you. She said, but hold a bag of Cheetos in your hand and you'll be weaker because those Cheetos are poison and they have bad energy. And I got to tell you that I'm absolutely convinced that that's true. She said, look, I'm just going to show you. She said, your body knows the truth. I'm going to show you a little experiment. She said, the body, just like your body knows you, telling the truth and when you're lying. So my name is Aaron. And she said, look, she said, hold your arm up. She clears me. And she says, say my name is whatever, I don't know, Dan. So I said, my name is Dan. I mean, this woman threw my arm down so fast, I literally could not resist her. And then she clears me again and she says, okay, say my name is Aaron. I said, my name is Aaron. And I got to tell you, I felt strong and I could feel her pushing down on me. And I could feel the resistance of me pushing back up. And she said, I can't budge you. I couldn't push your arm down. And so I left there sort of half believing her, but wondering, was she just messing with me? Is she so strong? She's a thin, not a big person. Certainly a strong woman, no question. Not this giant bodybuilder, not a judo wrestler, boxing kind of person. Strong, but not someone who I would think is insanely strong. And certainly comparable enough to my wife, but I would feel like, okay, I'm going to come home and ask Teresa. And I told her all about it. And she said, wow, that sounds weird. But before I really explained it to her, I said, look, just do me a favor before I explain this to you. Push my arm down. And she could hang on my arm. Her 120 pounds or 130 pounds or whatever she weighed at that point. She couldn't push my arm down. And I got to tell you that I thought back to it. And it was enough of those times when she was testing me for a virus and then asking me to lie about my name. When she pushed my arm down, I could not stop her. So anyway, that's just a little aside. I definitely do believe that good things have good energy and bad things have bad energy. And it's something to think about when we're considering what we're going to eat, what we're going to put in our body, who we're going to be around, what we're going to be around. It's pretty important. But anyway, we sat under these cypress trees, these 4 cypress trees for a little while with our shoes off and our feet in the earth. And you can look that up. There's something called grounding, just having your feet touching the earth. And it helps draw toxins out of your body. And you get good energy from the soil. Holding our little cypress leaves in our hands. And both of us were suffering. Now, he was suffering worse. And we both were dealing with anxiety. Of course, his was worse. But you could hear our breathing get better. We were calm. We were happy. And cypress essential oil actually helps bring about a feeling of happiness and calm. Pretty amazing, actually. And we could breathe better, and we felt better, and we went home feeling better. And we brought home a bunch of cypress boughs to kind of put in everybody's room near them where they sleep to help them. But if I hadn't have taken that walk with Isabel, I wouldn't have thought to go by those cypress trees. And today, after sharing all of that stuff with the rest of the children, before dinner instead of after dinner today, we took a walk, not as long a walk as we normally take on a Sunday. We take a long Sunday walk. But we wanted to let everybody rest a little more because we were suffering yesterday. We took a shorter walk to the busy street near us, crossed the busy road, and sat down in this little group of cypress trees while people are zooming by on every side and going around the turnaround. And some people looked at us and smiled, and a lot of people looked at us and thought we were crazy. It's not a place anybody would really think to have a picnic, but it's this beautiful little haven in the middle of suburbia that nobody would go to. If it was on one of the dead-end streets near us, everybody would hang out there, but because of where it is, it's a place nobody would go. And it really is a beautiful little place, full of really good energy. And I think we all benefited greatly from it. And we had our snack there, put a couple of moving blankets down, and I read the Bible and read from the Book of Wisdom and read a story. And we talked quite a bit, and it was a nice time, and everybody really enjoyed it. But I guess the point in that story is to say that God speaks, and He prepares us for things if we're listening. If we listen to the Holy Spirit really does give us instruction if we want to get instruction from the Spirit. And one of the things that I thought as I prayed with Teresa before finally deciding on exactly what I would do, because I was considering whether or not I would pull out some of the... We've still got some inhaler steroids somewhere for Andrew from when he was sick more often and dealing with those asthma-like symptoms. And I really felt like to put those sort of drugs in our bodies is really the opposite of what we need to do for health. And anybody who suffers with asthma, I'm not telling you shouldn't do something or thinking you're doing the wrong thing. I'm just telling you how I feel. And that's that as much as it's possible for us to avoid these synthetic hormones, synthetic steroids, chemically altered foods, the energy from Wi-Fi. As much as we can avoid that stuff, the better off we're going to be. And I felt that that wouldn't be ultimately good for Andrew. He'd get a little bit of relief, but it's not going to heal him. And he's not in any mortal danger when he's suffering like that. He's just anxious and not feeling good. And it makes me anxious. And if he has just a little bit of relief, I feel a little bit of relief. But if what I'm doing for him ultimately isn't good for him and isn't healing his problem, then I feel like what I'm doing is doing what the enemy wants me to do. And then I'm allowing my fear to chase me right into the hands of my enemy. And so I prayed that, and I was really sure that what I should do is just take him for a walk and sit down and hang out on those cypress trees. And the difference in hanging out over there for an hour, because he used to be sick like that, suffering with his asthma-like symptoms, and I'd give him his inhaler, give it to him, and I'd have to sit up with him all night long. We'd watch a movie or play on the Wii or something. And it's bad energy from the TV. You can believe me or don't believe me. And I'd have to sit up with him all night. And he'd have a hard time sleeping. He'd have to sit up because laying down was hard for him. And yesterday he had one of those times it was like it used to happen to him when he was younger, a couple 3 years ago. And it's been since then that we've ever seen him be that bad again. And 1 hour hanging out under the trees, and he slept from... By the time I got him to bed, because his mama made his healing tea, and while we were gone, and we got him some of that, and he sat up with us. He got some honey, which has lots of healing properties, and we spread the cypress boughs around for everybody. By the time he went to bed, it was about midnight, but he slept soundly from midnight until about 6 in the morning, and he was having a little bit of a hard time breathing then. I got him up, we sat up, I read stories to him. He had some more of the tea and a little bit of this honey we get that's Manuka honey, it's called Manuka. And he felt better. And he went back to sleep for a couple more hours. So to have the sort of relief that he did for 6 hours and feel as good as he did after an hour of hanging out under those cypress trees was pretty amazing. So there's healing things in nature all around us, and man-made things don't heal. They really don't. I mean, I'm sorry if you're a doctor. I'm not meaning to insult anybody. I know doctors, and they're good at what they do. Like I know surgeons who are very good, and I think that when it comes especially to trauma, sometimes you really do need a doctor. But when the answers are drugs, I don't think those are really answers at all. And there are healing herbs and foods, and there's a lot of toxic things that we cannot avoid in our environment, but there's a lot that we can. And if we don't let our bodies get overloaded by toxins because we make our best effort to avoid them, drinking clean water, not drinking Cokes, not eating GMO foods, and more importantly, not eating highly processed foods, eating whole foods, real foods, as clean foods as we can. And that's hard because they spray things with pesticides. They spray oats with pesticides literally right before they harvest them. They do the same thing with peanuts. And whereas eating oats is probably pretty good for you, most of the oats that you get, like a Quaker Oats or something, it's full of pesticides. And it's hard to find things that are clean or supposedly clean, and they cost you more money. So it's not an easy thing to do. We're at the point now, especially like with our drinking water, for example. Well, actually, I wouldn't say especially with the drinking water, pretty much with anything. But with the drinking water, I literally, when I leave the house to go work on a job, if I'm doing renovation work for that day, I take 2 gallons of water with me after drinking a big Yeti cup full. Do I take 2 gallons? Yeah, I take 2 gallons. About 2 gallons of clean water with me, and I don't want to drink anybody else's water. They're acidic bottled water, or they're chlorinated drinking water out of the tap, or whatever. Fluorinated water. I don't want to drink any of that. And as much as I can avoid it, I don't want to eat the foods that people have, because first of all, there's things I don't eat a lot of anymore. Sugar, I can't handle a lot of it. And I realize how I'm very sensitive to gluten, and we're gluten-free now, and I don't want to take the chance that I'm eating something that I didn't know had wheat in it. And then just so many of the foods that people eat are genetically modified corn products, soy products, highly processed foods. So fasting for a day doesn't kill healthy people. And if I didn't have enough food for a day, I'll wait till I get home to eat dinner, then grab anything else to eat. We've got to avoid toxins as much as possible. And we got to avoid things that have bad energy as much as possible. We got to eat good, healthy things and spend as much time as we can around good, healthy people. Not to say that we can't. We got family that it's not healthy, or friends or people that we might minister to, but we need to really be careful about how much contact we have with people who are not healthy in all kinds of ways. And we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. 5 hours of sleep isn't enough. 7 to 9 is what everybody needs, truly. We need to make sure that we're getting our rest, and we got to change our life if need be so that we can accomplish those goals and be healthy. So that's just talking about health a little bit. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was just how God speaks to us. And God literally gives us direction moment by moment when we need it, if we're just tuned in and willing to listen, to really ask and receive the answer. Because the answer for us yesterday was not to give Andrew an inhaler, not to run him to the ER where he didn't need to go just so they could put the nebulizer on him and, give him antibiotics and chest x-rays and sit around in that building where there was a bunch of sick people and Wi-Fi signals going everywhere, which are just not good for you. They're just not. You can look it up. There's a lot of information out there about the dangers of it. What he needed was to go sit in the cypress trees down the road from us and have his feet stick in the earth and just have a conversation with his dad who loves him and pray a little bit. And that was more healing for him than anything else I could have done for him. And God spoke that into my mind, and I understood it in my heart, and I was able to hear it. Not hear, but hear it. And go ahead and do it. So, yeah. I'll share links. Anyhow, shalom, friends. Till next time.